All right, welcome to Movie Battleground. This is the moment we have been waiting for a few weeks, a few months, a few days, all the time that you can think of. Just like that, it's over. Well, it will be after this match. It is the finals for the Movie Battleground tournament, and we have two amazing competitors in Alex Warden and Greg Weinstein. Greg, let's start off with you because I just got done talking to you or hearing you talk in this chat before we started the call. How do you feel about this match? Are you nervous? Have you prepared really hard? Is there any just overall thoughts you got?
I mean, I'm feeling great. I've done my preparations, done my research. I love my choices. I've battled down my opponent's choices, and I'm just ready to get these match on the way so I can get into a three-way so I can go ahead and win my title that I rightfully deserve.
That's what I'm talking about. And Alex, you definitely have a lot on your plate going on in the
hmm
Worldwide Movie Games atmosphere. How do you feel about this specific tournament final?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not worried about it because I was thinking about this today. Since my first Battleground match, which if you go back and watch all the way in October, I did that on 3 hours of preparation and did it pretty much blind and narrowly lost. Since then, I'm undefeated. I'm on a 5 game win streak to get to this point. I should have been in the first championship match. I said that last time. Evan just happened to jump back in for one last match to up his standings. Otherwise, I would have been right in there and I could be the current champion. So that's been the whole point of this. Evan kicked me to the curb back in November. I'm here to kick him right back in that title match. And Greg, it's going to be a fun fight, but I'm going for that belt. And there's nothing that's stopping me.
Well, that's what I like to hear. We got some fierceness. Everybody's on decent rest. Nobody's actually moving today. Maybe the moving process is still going on, but actually moving is not as it was a few weeks ago. And everybody is pretty fresh. So, with that being said, any last things that we want to talk about, or can we start battling?
Let's get it over with.
All right, gentlemen. First off, I want to say congratulations for making it this far and good luck. All right, our first question in this tournament finale. Avengers Infinity War just broke the record for best opening weekend. What past movie, if released this summer, do you think would break Infinity's new record? Infinity War's new record. And Greg, you're going first, so when you're ready.
Okay, this is a bad question in general because of so many reasons. If you look back at all of the movies with the biggest opening domestic or international box office of all times in one weekend, the first 20 or 30 or so are all movies that are based on are franchise movies. They're the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth movies. They're all movies that are building off something. My opponent picked the first movie in a franchise, so therefore that's strike one. Uh, Strike two is that it wasn't that big of an opening to begin with. But moving on, besides his one, which we'll get to in the arguments, my movie is the culmination of a saga, of a worldwide literary franchise, of a worldwide uh, fandom that has still been growing ever since, which is why we created a whole new franchise on top of it, which is why a Broadway play just started that is booming in box office just on Broadway. And of course, I'm talking about the eighth and final film in the Harry Potter franchise, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part Two. Not only was it the biggest box office of the entire Harry Potter franchise, it is the fifth highest grossing box office weekend of all time. That's not even including a couple of countries where it didn't start, which include China, which just happened 2 weeks later, or Japan, which happened a week later. But it started off with 170 million domestic, 314 million foreign, which comes out to $484 million worldwide, which is only less than 70 million off of Infinity Wars franchise number one weekend record, and that's 7 years later, back in 2011. You're talking about that came out this summer, building off of the hype of The Cursed Child, which just came out on Broadway, all that wait for it, all that awesomeness for it that we have, new kids, new franchise, more 3D, more everything that could have been produced. And obviously, top five easily could have been number one. And that is why Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2 is really the only answer to this question.
All right. Well, You have an opponent, so he also has an answer, so he's going to have a different opinion. And Alex, let's hear it.
Well, Greg did slightly allude to it. My choice of film is one that started a franchise. And my choice of film was a movie that in my last match I pointed out helped save and reestablish the Hollywood blockbuster in the mid 90s, and that is 1993's Jurassic Park. My thought on this is that Jurassic Park was a groundbreaking film. It was a landmark film. You look at the numbers, and no, it didn't have the biggest opening weekend of all time, but it grossed 50 million domestically, which back in the 90s was a huge number, especially in 1993. Adjusted for inflation and factoring in other things that I'll get to, this would have been a huge record-breaking film if released today, made by the same director, Steven Spielberg, new upgraded Hollywood cast, and a mix of both brand new upgraded digital effects and still using practical effects for the dinosaur and creature effects. You would have had a spectacular film that audiences would have talked about, raved about, and much like other films in recent years that are the first in their franchise or offshoots of a franchise, the word of mouth alone would have forced people to go to the theaters and go see this movie opening weekend. All the hype in the world behind it, including the big studio money, and it would have broken records if it was released this year, 25 years after it was initially made.
All right, two very good opening arguments. Definitely two different spectrums and different approaches to this. So unless anybody wants to take a time extension, I'm going to start 5 minutes. Starting now.
Okay, the problem with Deathly Hallows is twofold. One, you are either releasing the film as a new film in the franchise 8 years after the release of its previous installment. That is going to alienate and piss off fans to the point that either they're just not going to go see it or they're going to shit talk it the entire time leading up to the opening weekend, and it will drive down its numbers. The alternative then would be that you would have to push the whole franchise back 8 years in its release schedule and not start making these films until the mid to late 2000s. The problem there is you won't have the same cast of kids. It'll be completely different kids who may not have the same chops as the original cast. And you'll have a completely different set of filmmakers making the film, writing the film, helping produce it. You won't guarantee the same quality of film, which made those films magic. Not to mention, in that spectrum, you're also pushing back the release relative to the books. The books were at their peak in the late 90s, early 2000s. If these Harry Potter films are not coming out until the late 2000s, a decade later from their initial release, all the hype behind them is going to be gone. Or if you've released the last book and all the stories out there, but you're holding back that last half of the story for 8 years, people are going to be pissed off and they're just not going to go see it out of principle, or they're just going to wait for it to come out on home video because they've waited long enough as it is.
First of all, 8 years, not that people will be upset. It'll build anticipation. People will, if you want to go that route, if you just release this one 8 years after the other ones, fine. You can just build anticipation. You get more kids. You have those kids who were reading this book when they first came out. They're now adults in their 20s and 30s, and they're taking their kids to see it. And that's even more people that are into it. Because when it was released in the 2000s, it was mostly just the kids bringing their parents. The parents who were in their 30s and 40s really didn't read the books unless they were reading them to their kids. Here, you have kids who came out when the books came out are now as adults with their own kids, and you know they pass on this book because the books are still still the highest grossing books every year. And not only that, you have The Cursed Child, which is still putting Harry Potter in the popular list as it just released on Broadway. You have Fantastic Beasts, which also came out, which would have been a great little intermediary between the movies. And if you want to go another route where you just push every movie back a couple years, that gives you more anticipation, more release. You can still keep the same people. Your movie, while yes,
get the same kids. You can't. They're going to be
that is not going to do anything for now because it is the first of a movie. It's the first of a franchise. First of franchises are, especially if they're good, will create a good box office, but they will never have a big box office. If you look at the box office.
Avatar is a perfect example of that. The filmmaker making
that was not a big weekend. Avatar was a long-standing. We're talking about opening weekend. Avatar did not have a big opening weekend because it was the first. Look it up on the Box Office Mojo. It is not in the top 20. Avatar was a long-standing one. just like Titanic was a long-standing one.
Avatar
James Cameron
was one of the highest grossing opening weekends of all time. The problem is that many films in franchises have come out since then to dilute the effect of its box office. With Jurassic Park, however, you're getting a much better quality of filmmaker in Steven Spielberg releasing a movie about dinosaurs coming to life. In my idea, you don't have the other films coming out around it. You don't have to worry about that. Jurassic Park is the first of its kind, building off of Michael Crichton's amazing novel from the early 90s, but having all the time in the world to tweak the story and make it better and make a better adaptation of the Crichton source material. You're getting the increased special effects that the years brought out.
42nd on the worldwide box office single weekend chart. 42nd as of 2008. You're talking about 10 years later, it would have got even bigger.
I'm not talking about Avatar, though. I'm using Avatar as an example as a franchise that has a good following based on its filmmaker. And I'm saying that Steven Spielberg, as a filmmaker, can launch a film better than James Cameron, and he's proven that time and time again. He proved it earlier this year with Ready Player One.
Player One was a special effects driven movie that was done by Spielberg and also didn't break that much because it was not a franchise. Franchises, especially if you want to talk about Spielberg movies, that's also based on a beloved book that also did not make that much worldwide in its first weekend. Unless you're a franchise or unless you have a known, you will not be big in the circumference that there is.
No, that's completely untrue. The thing is, if you have a good enough film made by a good enough filmmaker with good enough word of mouth going into it, you will get box office results. Many films have proven that over the years. Avatar is just an example of one. Your point with Harry Potter, however, of all the media surrounding it, it wouldn't belay the fact that you're either pushing the movie back 8 years and pushing the cast back 8 years. You can't guarantee the same quality of kids acting. You can't guarantee the same quality of filmmakers being available. You can't guarantee a good enough adaptation of the script because the books will have been around for 8 years longer for people to sit on them, become beholden.
8 years longer is just more reason for kids to see it, more reason for kids to read it, which is what they're already doing.
And more time for people to become beholden to that source material so that when the films get things wrong in the adaptation, the fans will be pissed about it. And by the time they get to the 8th film where so much has changed between the source material and the adaptation, they are not going to like it.
And time. All righty. So that was the opening first round battle. That was some pretty good from both of you. Definitely got some good arguments on both ends. I definitely need to hear a little bit more from each of you, but I won't tell you why because it's championship and I want you to figure it out for yourself. So with that being said, So who goes first on the?
Greg starts.
Greg would.
Okay, just making sure. All right, so Greg, since you went first in the opening round, you're also going to go first in your closing, and let me know what your thoughts are when you're ready.
First of all, there are many ways to delay the whole 7-year gap. One, you could make all the movies at the same time and just release them a little bit later. For whatever reason, you could also push the movie back and have an 8-year hiatus. And really, because there was only a 8-month difference between Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2. And there was also only a 2-year difference between the 6th and the 7th movie. You can push those out a little bit longer and get closer to the year that we're currently at. You can also have an 8-year delay where people are still watching. And he's talking about how the books are not popular. The 500 millionth book just sold this year for Harry Potter. It is one of the biggest selling books of all time. It is still mass produced, still loved all over the world. That is the thing. This book is beloved everywhere. It is beloved in US, it's beloved in Asia, it's beloved in Africa, Europe, wherever, South America. It is everywhere. It's produced in every language and people want to see it. I've evidenced by the box office for my movie, which is a $484 million, the 5th highest movie of all time. His movie is not anywhere near the rankings. His movie wouldn't be anywhere near the rankings because unless you're a franchise, unless you're in the middle of a franchise, or unless you have some kind of IP that is very well known, like the superhero genre, you are not going to create something big. Avatar, his one example, was not a big weekend because it was the first film in a franchise. The second one might be huge. The third one might be even bigger. The people will wait for early reviews and wait for word of mouth to see movies that are not franchise starters. That is what happens. And these movies, and Jurassic Park would have got word of mouth. Hence, they got word of mouth because it only made less than $50 million and made over $1 billion worldwide. But that was over a long-standing time. If you're talking about the biggest thing to break the record this weekend, one weekend, you have to have something that is a known property, that is still in the conscious, that is beloved by everyone, and that can be mass produced by a worldwide driven audience, which is what Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2 would and will do.
Alrighty, and Alex, your final thoughts to wrap up the first question.
Couple of points to his firstly, just going back to the point about delaying the film's release, that will alienate people and it will turn people away from the franchise. Also, the fact that the books are a popular seller, that's an effect of the films themselves. The films having come out and being so popular drove people to read the books and continue to buy the books. If the films had never been made, the books would not be as popular as they were today. They would still be successful, but not to the level that they are. Whereas with the point of the films being pushed back and delaying it and delaying the gratification, you can only delay that for so long to the point where you're pissing people off. A perfect example is Super Troopers. They just had a sequel released a couple of months ago, made on the same budget with the exact same cast and continuing that story. And it was so long since the original film came out, nobody wanted to see it. And it's tanking at the box office as a result. Whereas the original was a cult phenomenon that people couldn't stop talking about. The difference with
the budget.
The difference with Jurassic Park is you would have had the Michael Crichton novel, which was a modern sci-fi masterpiece, building 25 years of hype in filmmaking. A filmmaker, Steven Spielberg, making the film with all of the pedigree he's had since 1993, Oscars for Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, blockbusters like Minority Report and Ready Player One, and he's making a film about dinosaurs coming to life, which in this version, we would have never seen the other Jurassic Park films, so this would have been a landmark film. The marketing and budgeting and advertising thrown into it alone would have driven people into the theaters. That first Jurassic Park trailer, if you unleash that today with better special effects, a modern Hollywood cast, and still having the practical effects of dinosaurs coming to life, it would have sparked audiences to jump out of their seats, jump into the theater, and break that opening weekend record to see that kind of spectacle on the big screen in IMAX, in 3D, and just make all of the money in the world, which is what Spielberg does best.
Alrighty, round one is wrapped up, and here are some thoughts. After the opening round, I definitely was leaning one way with Greg when he was talking. He really knocked Jurassic Park about it being the first in the franchise, and about his Harry Potter of how it's just a known commodity, and how it just has that populace going on. And then in the opening rounds, I started to lean more towards Alex because he really knocked down the gap difference in Harry Potter and how that's going to affect audiences, and it's going to really lessen the desire for the franchise and for the final movie. And also he brought up the age part of it. It just all of it did make sense. And then Greg really hit back really good in the closing, talking about how part of the Avatar thing and how if it's not part of a franchise, it's really not going to hold up. And he really countered Alex's argument with Avatar, saying that it really happened later on. So the point that I really had to focus on this one was the reason why this movie would exist now versus why it couldn't exist when it came out, and the benefits for it. And unfortunately, I didn't hear enough from Greg why that gap would happen in the 8-year difference or the 6-year span, 7-year span, whenever it would be. And Alex did really good on knocking that, the fact that it would be that gap, and the effect on Alex with the first in the franchise. But Alex really covered on the Spielberg thing. And if I had to choose on which one I think would probably make the most money, I would have to go a first in a franchise, the very first dinosaur movie versus an 8-year gap movie. So I'm going to go Alex on the very first point. So moving on to the second question, which Alex said he's going to go first.
Yep.
Speaking of sequels and franchises, what is the most unnecessary sequel? So, Alex, you chose to go first on this one, so let me have it when you're ready.
All right. Well, funnily enough, when this question came up, I decided to dip my toe back into the exact same franchise I was just talking about. With Jurassic Park, the initial film, blockbuster, people went to go see it, they loved it, and it created a universe where dinosaurs roamed the Earth in a small little area. The second film comes out 4 years later, The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Not the best sequel, but still does service to the original and brings us the dinosaurs leaving the island and all of the potential thoughts that could bring up. We only see just a little bit of taste of it in The Lost World with a T-Rex roaming San Diego, but the potential for more of that kind of chaos and damage in future installments just whets the appetite and your imagination. And then we get Jurassic Park 3. What were they thinking? This sequel was wholly unnecessary because it doesn't build anything. It doesn't build on the last two films. It takes us back to a small, isolated island. It brings back cast members whose arcs were already wrapped up in the initial film, Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sattler. It shoehorns in a story about some rich kid who gets trapped on the island because him and his stepfather were parasailing, and his two parents trying to rescue him that we really don't care about. And ultimately, it doesn't add anything to the franchise. It doesn't add anything to the mythos of Jurassic Park. It doesn't inspire more ideas. It just keeps things isolated for a dumb monster movie that might as well have been about another type of original monster, and that might have made more sense. It sticks the Jurassic Park name on it for no reason other than to make money off the name, and that's the worst kind of sequel, and this is the worst version of it because it's taking a beloved franchise of the 90s, sticking its name on a story that really doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the franchise except for a couple characters, and just makes a movie that is just completely unnecessary to continue on the legacy of that story.
All right, interesting viewpoint for the third Jurassic Park film. And now we're going to go over to Greg.
All right, so I'm not sure what the actual question is for this question, but what they wrote was, what's the most unnecessary sequel? So I'm going to argue that question. The most unnecessary sequel is not a movie that made money, and not a movie that made money off a franchise, which is what his movie did. I'm talking about a movie that the first movie sucked, or at least is... I'm not a big fan of it, but a lot of people have it. But it was a big cult movie and never made money. I'm talking about a movie where the original writer, director, and entire team behind it completely disown the sequel. And I'm talking about a movie that some people haven't even heard of, like our esteemed Judge Henry. I'm talking about S. Darko, which, if you've never heard of it, because of the dumbass title, it's very hard to type in text. That is the sequel to Donnie Darko, the cult smash starring starring Jake Gyllenhaal from Richard Kelly earlier in the 2000s. This movie was released a full 8 years after the Donnie Darko. It was released without the approval of Richard Kelly, who wrote and directed and was behind the entire Donnie Darko scene. It was not released or produced with any of the producers or any of anyone behind it at all. It was one guy apparently who liked Donnie Darko decided to make a sequel 8 years later following The Girl. The younger sister of Jake Gyllenhaal's character. It was incredibly widely panned, was never given a full release, was only I think it was released in a couple theaters and then released mostly on DVD. It was tanked horribly at the box office, didn't even make back its $4 million budget. Jurassic Park 3 was pretty much is his pick just because it seems he didn't like it. It was only a $94 million budgeted movie that made almost $400 million worldwide, and it was given the permission of Steven Spielberg, who gave Joe Johnston permission to make the third one, if there ever was one, after the success of Jurassic Park. Steven Spielberg wanted to do one sequel, and then he was giving Joe Johnston the reins to Jurassic Park 3. And while it's not the best Jurassic Park movie, obviously, it is also not a bad Jurassic Park movie. It's about 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. It, obviously some of the characters, but we never cared about the characters anyway. The whole point of Jurassic Park is the dinosaurs killing people. We don't care about the characters. So complaining about the whole character storyline is just pointless. S. Darko takes a neat, nifty kind of idea with Donnie Darko and basically just does it again with no one caring about it, no one owning it, and no one giving permission to it.
Alrighty, definitely two very different viewpoints once again with this one, and I'm definitely curious to see how this was going to go. Is anybody interested in a time extension for this one?
Nope.
No.
All right, then 5 minutes starting now.
Oh, you can go. I don't think you made any points yet.
All right. Well, I have made a couple of points. The fact that Jurassic Park 3 is trying to continue the story in a direction that nobody wanted, nobody needed, bringing back characters whose arcs were already complete, it makes the sequel unnecessary by telling an unnecessary story. The difference with S. Darko is it actually is trying to do something with continuing the story. It's following Donnie's youngest sister after the tragedy that took Donnie away from the world and left his family in shambles. And now she's dealing with the same type of psychological problems that he was dealing with before he passed. That's actually a very interesting premise. The fact that the original creator wasn't involved and the fact that it was a fan of the original film wanting to continue that story make it intriguing and make people seek it out. Even if it wasn't a theatrical release, it did only go direct to video and VOD. People still sought it out and saw interest in it. It did get a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means maybe critics didn't like it the most, but fans fans of the franchise did like that it tried to continue the direction of the original story. With Jurassic Park 3, you're continuing a story that nobody wanted to tell. Nobody cared what happened to Alan Grant after the first movie. Nobody cared what happened to Ellie Sattler. We thought they would just get together and that would be the end of it. Instead, we find out that's not what happened. Alan just continued on in his work. Ellie moved away from him, settled down, and had a kid. The one thing we thought Alan would want after the events of Jurassic Park, and he didn't. It left the character stale. It left Alan Grant stale. And the fact that he's being drawn into the situation for no reason other than his name recognition, it just creates confusion to the plot. You'd think these people would know who was involved in which of the stories. They even point that out in the film for a laugh, but it ultimately points out how many plot holes are in the story. The fact is they didn't have the great effects budget that the original 2 films had. It doesn't look as good as the original 2 Jurassic Park films. The story's not as good as the original 2 Jurassic Park films, and that's why it's an unnecessary sequel. You're just using the franchise and the name to make a movie when you don't really care about the substance of the film.
$1 million box office worldwide, which is leaps and bounds more than Darko. And if you're going to keep up bringing errors, I wish the Henry would at least call you on it, because S. Darko was only at 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience score is 18%. Whereas opposed to your movie, since you're going to bring it up, Jurassic Park 3 was actually at 50%, so higher, and the audience score is about 60%, I believe. So actually, apparently, more audiences do care more about your movie than mine. And your movie actually made money, and it was actually given permission by the actual director and the people. S. Darko, while having a somewhat intriguing premise, completely befuddles that by creating a road trip movie out of it and creating some using these high school-esque people who can act, like Ed Westwick, like James Lafferty, like Elizabeth Berkley. We know our movie's going to be great when Elizabeth Berkley's in it. And it just crashes and burns. It did not make any of its money back. It was a $4 million budgeted movie that did not make that back. And it was the box office was horrible. It tanked worldwide. It tanked by the audience, and if you look at the message boards of any of them, they don't even give credence to S. Darko being an actual sequel. The fact that they re-released it later on, a few years later, with S. Darko, a Donnie Darko tale, is something they had to do to try and create more money out of it, and they still didn't do it because the fans knew that it was not an actual Donnie Darko trilogy that anyone would like, and they didn't, because the Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritics all show, even though you say it's 42, it's actually 13 by the critics, 18 by the audience.
Okay, well, number aside, the point I'm making is that S. Darko at least tries to do something different with the franchise and continuing on the story and take an interesting route of exploring what happens to Donnie's youngest sister and his family after that tragedy. Jurassic Park 3, what are they doing? They're retelling the story of the first half of the second film and swapping Dr. Ian Malcolm with Dr. Alan Grant, continuing Dr. Alan Grant's story, which really at that point nobody really wanted. We thought Dr. Alan Grant's arc was wrapped up at the end of the first film, and he doesn't really get an arc in this film. We just see that he's spinning his wheels in place and still talking about dinosaurs 10 years later after the events of the first film. It's completely unnecessary to see him do that. Also,
nobody cares about any of the storylines in any of the Jurassic Park movies. The Jurassic Park movies are not about storylines. They're about action. They're about dinosaurs, because dinosaurs don't exist anymore. We want to see the dinosaurs be awesome. We want to see them do cool stuff. Nobody cares about the storylines in any of the movies, which is why they're basically retreading everything, which is why Jurassic World retreaded, and it still made a $100 billion box office. No, the storyline could be anything, and people will go still see it because of dinosaurs. That's the whole point. People want to see the dinosaurs kick ass and fight each other, and that's what we get in these movies. We don't care about the storylines or the characters, really, and
no, that's where you're wrong. Steven Spielberg, as a filmmaker, made us care about the human characters in Jurassic Park, and he made us care about them again in The Lost World. Joe Johnston doesn't give us that care with the third film. He makes nothing but a big budget spectacle, which is why that film becomes unnecessary.
And time.
You just watch the first two again.
Alrighty, so yeah, that was an interesting battle, and I don't want to give any thoughts right now. I will fact check later, but yes, I did do some fact checking, but it's not my place to say that in the open rounds. So if you did your research, you could call people out, and maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. But with that said, Alex, you are first up in your closing argument.
All right. Look, take the box office aside, take the critics' scores aside, and think of it in these terms. What makes a necessary sequel is what continues an intriguing story from a previous film. And that's really what we're looking at here is two sequels. What makes an unnecessary sequel is when the story seems like it's wrapped up and we have nowhere else to explore, or a movie that doesn't explore and doesn't continue on story threads. That's the problem with Jurassic Park 3. It's not continuing to build on the previous two films. It's not continuing open threads for characters that we saw in the first two films. It's bringing back a lead character whose arc was already completed in the first film. It's bringing us back to that second island and stuck on that second island with dinosaurs when the last film set up that dinosaurs could leave that island, could go global, and cause pandemonium, something that we're only going to see fulfilled, hopefully, coming up in a couple of weeks with the release of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. With S. Darko, they're continuing the story in a different direction. They're looking at Donnie's sister. They're seeing how she deals with her tragedy. They're seeing how her family deals with the tragedy that befell them, and now her being afflicted by the same problems that Donnie had of psychological torture brought on by temporal manifestations. This is something that actually is very intriguing when you look at it in a storytelling method. Maybe they didn't execute it with the best cast or the best script, but they at least tried to tell an intriguing story. With Jurassic Park 3, they just wanted to cash in on the name of the franchise, and that's what makes it unnecessary. Yes, it made money. Yes, people went to go see it, and some people even liked it, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't a bad film and an unnecessary film. They could have made a way better Jurassic Park sequel, continuing on the threads from the other two films, which would have made more money and gotten even more critical praise, and that's why this film is unnecessary, because they ended up doing that 14 years later with Jurassic World, and coming up to now with Jurassic World 2 Fallen Kingdom. This film, when you take it as the scope of the franchise, it doesn't need to exist, and that's why Jurassic Park 3 is an unnecessary sequel, and the most unnecessary sequel.
Okay. And Greg, your final thoughts?
I like how Alex wants to get rid of all the things that actually determine whether a sequel is necessary or not, like box office, like critical reception, like fans wanting. Because that's the whole point of whether a movie would deserve or want or need a sequel is what the fans think. That's why you make a movie, because the fans decided to go see the first movie or the second movie or the third movie, and they said, you know what, we want more of this. This is why Transformers keep being made, even though Transformers suck, but because people keep going to see it, they obviously keep being necessary because it keeps making money. That's the whole point of why you're making a sequel, is because the first one made money, the previous one was liked, and people want to go see more. And if you want to talk about Joe Johnston ruining it, Steven Spielberg actually had a worse idea, and it was his idea to bring back Dr. Grant. In fact, although he wanted Dr. Grant as a Robinson Crusoe type, which would have been even worse. And Joe Johnston, with the help of Michael Crichton, who actually put in some ideas for this movie, decided to create a fun, action-packed, very short movie. This is actually the shortest Jurassic Park movie of the entire franchise by a countrywide mile. It's only 93 minutes long. And because Johnston knows that what people want from the Jurassic Park movies is the dinosaurs kicking ass and being action-filled. That's what we want to see, which is why it made so much money. S. Darko, while creating some while you're saying has an interesting premise, does not have an interesting premise. It's just continuing the first movie with a younger daughter, with the younger sister, and not fulfilling its promise, which is the whole reason why it's been lambasted by not only the writer and the director, not only the previous cast, but especially by the fans who did not go see the movie. And if you go on the message boards, do not care about the movie and do not consider it actually being part of the official Donnie Darko canon. This is an unnecessary sequel because it is not any good. It did not make any money, just like the first one didn't make any money, or Donnie Darko didn't make any money. And when you brought up the Super Troopers analogy in the first one, which actually Super Troopers 2 did make money, just because these cult movies make money on home video does not mean we will go see them. Just like Anchorman, we didn't go see Anchorman, we didn't go see S. Darko. We don't want to see these movies because we only want to see them at home. And when this one was actually released on VOD and home video, we still didn't go see it. We had the chance to see it at home, and it didn't make any money. It was a $4 million budgeted movie. It didn't make back its money. And it was just a bad movie that shouldn't have been made. Nobody was asking for it. Nobody wanted it. And worst of all, it has the weird, badly written title of S. Darko, which is stupid. That's why.
So we got some interesting arguments. What I really got from both of these competitors were two different perspectives. One, two reasons on what makes an unnecessary sequel. One, storyline based, and two, critical and financial success / however you want to word that. So what I had to go on with that is what I personally believe, based on the arguments, made sense for why the other one existed. And based on the arguments, what I heard most against Alex's was the fact that we want to see dinosaurs fighting and beating each other up. And, at the end of the day, that's what we want to see. So it made money. It did really well. And personally, regardless of what Greg answered, based on the knocks on Alex's and the fact that he wasn't really able to sway me story-wise on the reason Jurassic Park is an unnecessary sequel because of, similar to what Greg said, the Transformers effect. We're getting those movies left and right because of how much money they make, and regardless of the story and regardless of the quality and regardless of the critical praise, they're still making money. So with that being said, I'm going to give Greg this point solely on the fact of how well he was able to knock down Jurassic Park 3. And, whatever we think of as Darko, it's not necessarily a more unnecessary sequel, but Jurassic Park 3 is definitely a less unnecessary sequel. So, semantics aside, we're definitely I'm gonna give that point to Greg, and we're gonna even it up at 1. Did that kind of solve that? Maybe kind of meet in the middle. No one's gonna be happy, but I definitely think that maybe that would help a little bit. We'll argue about it later. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. We'll see how the rest of the game goes.
Yeah. All right. Anyway. All right. So moving on to question 3. Alex, unfortunately, did not get the point there, but he chose to go first with this one, so maybe he can definitely get some headway. With Tully coming out, or have came out, what movie character would you want to babysit your kids for a week? So, Alex, go first.
All right. Well, I'm just going to pick the ultimate example of somebody unexpected babysitting your kids for a week and doing a phenomenal job of it. And that would be the John Hughes classic, Uncle Buck, played by John Candy. Uncle Buck, for those who haven't seen it, if you haven't, what are you doing? Go back and watch this movie. Is about a disheveled 40-something-year-old man who is a heavy smoker, drinker, and he's tasked with taking care of his sister's teenage daughter and 2 young kids. And he does an amazing job of it. He spends a week living in their lush suburban household in Chicago, feeding the kids giant pancakes, getting them to school on time, getting the teenage daughter out of trouble, and overall learning to grow as a man and teaching the kids to grow and fend for themselves. All the while, the parents are on vacation and out of business conference wondering, how are our kids doing? Why did we leave Buck with them? What the hell's going on in our house? And they come back to familial bliss. The kids are happy, Buck is happy, Buck has grown, and the kids have grown, and that's the kind of babysitter I would want. Someone who is going to take care of my kids, put their interests first, and want to do that to make them to be better as a person. That's the type of relationship I would want in a babysitter with my kids, and Uncle Buck is the perfect example of that.
Alrighty. Definitely a fun 80s perspective from that. And now we're going to move over to Greg with his choice on who he wants to babysit his kids for a week.
They actually went back to Indianapolis to take care of the wife's father, but I don't want to get semantics to be in the way of our argument here. I chose Baymax, the awesome, lovable healthcare assistant played by in Big Hero 6. If you want to talk about someone to watch over your kid, how about someone who can literally has 10,000 medical tests, professions, and procedures in his back pocket, like Baymax, who is literally designed to care and protect for you, and only goes away when he says you're satisfied with your care, and when he actually thinks you're satisfied with your care, as he's proven. And the thing about Baymax that is so great is he is lovable. He's fun. He can warm you when you're cold. He can give you a hug when you think you don't need it, but you really do need it. He can be there for you, and he can try to make you the most happy, which is the point is to not only protect and to be a guardian, but also to get in those underlying needs that only a robot like Baymax can do. Uncle Buck, while definitely an unexpected babysitter, is living in a Hollywood fantasy world where he would literally be in prison halfway through that movie based on all the people he threatens or physically abuses or knocks down just when he keeps on threatening children. Because Bug, while a creep, is a child that he threatens numerous times and that easily would be called on to the cops, especially when he gets thrown into a trunk against his will. You want to have your babysitter throw a kid into a trunk and then transport him? That kid, You want to talk about the parents coming home to family bliss? They're coming home to their uncle in jail. He will be in jail for kidnapping that kid. Baymax is there as a medical professional to not only watch over your kids, but to assist your kids, and if need be, can turn into an awesome superhero that can just kick ass and protect your kid.
Alrighty, this is definitely going to be a fun one. Very two different types of babysitters. So now, not only am I going to judge you on your picks of babysitters, but I'm also going to judge you as a parent on who you're allowing to watch your kids. So, does anybody want a time extension for round 3?
No.
All right, 5 minutes starting now.
All right, you want to talk about people causing trouble? There's a lot of problems with Baymax. Number one, the fact that you said it yourself. He has an off mode when all you have to say is, I'm satisfied with my care. Any smart kid is going to say that nonstop just to get Baymax off their back and just go off and do whatever the hell they want. Secondly, problem with Baymax, he's a healthcare unit. He doesn't know any other caring skills. He doesn't know how to cook. He doesn't know how to do laundry. He doesn't know how to take the kid to school. All he knows is healthcare. So while the kid may be happy and any of their boo-boos get fixed, they're not going to know any other basic skills. The kid's going to starve by the end of day number 3. The third problem being Baymax is a superhero character with a switch. If you switch him and you get him into his battle mode, he becomes destructive. He becomes violent. He becomes completely unstable. And any kid around that is completely in danger. You switch that mode on for Baymax, which any smart kid may figure out how to do or do by accident, you just immediately created a death trap around your child. With Uncle
Battle
Buck,
mode is not a switch you can create. Battle mode is something that the kid hero had to create for Baymax. How many kids do you know that can create a fully functioning AI operating system that they can put into a Baymax and make him go into a battle warrior? Nobody. Second of all, Baymax only actually goes in if when you say you're satisfied with your care, it doesn't have to. It has to be actually be genuine. He doesn't actually just accept it off face value, which is what happens when Hero tries to say it to him two times in the movie, and Baymax.
How many times have you said? How many times as a kid did you ever say something that was taken as completely genuine, but you know in the back of your head was bullshit? I did it time and time again. It's how I get through my life.
For the most part, parents can see that. Baymax can see right through that. That is the whole point of Baymax, is that he can look inside you. When he can read your mind. He can look at not read your mind. He can look at your mind, survey your mind and your body, and he can sense when you're actually being truthful, when you're being sad. He can sense that you're not being genuine by looking at your internal bodily functions. The problem with Uncle Buck, not only the fact that he might be in jail, the other problem is he might actually kill you with your car. That car is a roving death trap that can, I'm surprised it doesn't explode throughout the movie. As the Bug says, he needs a tune-up or he needs something. The other problem...
He ends up getting by on it, and that's half the fun of it. The other fun with Buck is that he's doing all these things with Bug to protect Tia and protect the other kids. He's going that extra mile to make sure that his teenage niece is safe. That's the kind of person I would want guarding and babysitting my teenage daughter, making sure that some scuzzbucket like Bug goes nowhere near her, because by the end of the film, I'm not going to get into it because it's a very touchy subject for me, but the fact that at the end of the film, something almost happens and Buck just happens to step in at the right moment to stop it and stop Tia's life from going down the toilet in one bad decision by Bug, he ends up becoming the hero in that story, and Tia ends up seeing that everything that Bug was doing was for the better of her life and getting her away from a creep.
Tia made the decision on her own to leave Bug. Bug doesn't come until after the fact. Tia had already decided and left Bug on her own because she knew as a woman, what she wanted, and she went away. She left on her own. She was smart enough and strong enough to leave.
And yet Buck still
steps
in to try and defend her, and she ends up appreciating him for that, and she ends up growing to love him for that. And that's the type of person I would want stepping up for my teenage daughter. Not to mention the well-being of the two younger kids, Miles and Maisie. They absolutely love Buck. He's taking amazing care of them, getting them to school on time, making sure they're fed, giving them giant pancakes for breakfast, making sure they're happy, making sure they're content. Baymax wouldn't be able to do all of that because all he's concerned with is people's health care. He doesn't know how to cook anything. He doesn't know how to do the laundry. He would barely be able to get the kids to school on time, and you're talking about
being adequately fed and hydrated is not a form of healthcare.
It's not shown in the film, but
he's not going to realize that they're starving and give them food. He is a healthcare professional. He will realize that when the kids are hungry, and to avoid them being sick, he will solve their hunger problems. That is the whole point of Baymax. If anything is wrong, whether you scrape your arm, whether you break something, whether you're emotionally distressed, like after your brother dies, or like when you are hungry, he will find ways to provide food. That's what he can do. He can
Yeah,
just.
that's not shown in the film, though. That's not established in the film. Baymax is just simply a healthcare
It is
unit
shown
to help you
that
when
he
you're
is
in
a
distress.
professional. Medical professionals. I don't know if you've known this. I don't know how the doctors are, but my doctors always tell me to eat and drink as many things I can. Him as a doctor will be able to do that for the kids. Uncle Buck will be in jail halfway through the movie because not only does he threaten Bug and lock him again in the trunk, he threatens the principal and goes off on her. He also punches a clown twice without any kind of physical altercation on the clown's part. The clown might be an asshole, but he still punches the clown.
Yeah, exactly.
John
the clown's being an asshole. The fact that the principal's being an asshole
can't
is in the
punch
wrong, and the fact that
asshole.
Buck knows he's in the
time.
wrong.
Woo! All right. Rounds 1 and 2 are definitely interesting, but this one and the next one are for sure going to be barn burners, and this open debate right now just proved that one, at least for this question. I'm definitely having fun with my thought process, and all right. So Alex, go ahead and do your closing argument because I'm definitely curious to see how this one's going to close up.
All right. The difference between Uncle Buck and Baymax is with Uncle Buck, you're getting someone who has a genuine interest emotionally and personally with the people he's caring for. And even if it's someone from outside the family, he's showing that interest. That's the type of person I want taking care of my kids. Someone who's going to make sure that they're fed, they're happy, they're content, they're getting to school on time, and shit around them that they notice is not going undealt with. With Baymax, you're getting a mildly sentient intelligence who is programmed for healthcare, but he cannot actually perform the same physical tasks. You think that Baymax is going to be able to go ahead and feed your kids? He's going to he will notice it potentially, but that doesn't mean he's going to be able to act on it. I don't want a robot who's going to go jack up my takeout bill for feeding my kids every time they're hungry, because that's all he's really going to be able to do. He physically is not programmed on how to cook. He's not programmed on how to do the laundry. He's going to need to spend money to do those things. With Uncle Buck, he's able to go out and help with that and direct that himself with the things in the house. And the ultimate difference is with Uncle Buck, you've got a familiar relation. I wish I had an Uncle Buck to take care of me as a kid, and I wish one of my brothers was like an Uncle Buck to take care of my potential future children. But Baymax, a robot taking care of my kids, someone who's going to need outside resources to help care and foster my children, that's an expenditure. That's extra money. If you've got the money to buy a robot, yeah, maybe you could afford that. I certainly don't. Most people don't. I'm not going to go out and want to have that additional expenditure. The difference is with Baymax, he's only designed for one singular purpose. And even though that purpose could potentially extend, his one singular purpose is not enough to properly take care of a child. Whereas with Uncle Buck, you have someone who can do all of the things necessary to take care of a child and have fun and make sure your child is happy. It's exactly what he does in the film. It's exactly what he does in the TV series that spun off to it. And it's why I would prefer Uncle Buck to babysit my children.
All right. Greg, your closing arguments. Let's see what you got to say.
Okay, it's shown in the movie that Uncle Buck really only cares about his family, as he's a horrible role model when he's not around them. He drinks, he gambles on horses, and he strings along the love of his life for 8 years without marrying her and without taking responsibility and trying to take a job that she gets for him. He is a horrible role model around anyone who's really not impressionable little kids who just understand that. Tia does understand that. And Tia while might be a brat, she's also a strong, independent woman who figures it out on her own. And I honestly believe that if we're not in the Hollywood movie magic, Uncle Buck will be in jail. Just because someone's an asshole, you can't just punch them in the face. Just because the principal of the school decides that your youngest kids shouldn't have imagination, does that mean you can threaten the principal of the school and not get thrown in jail? And you can especially not kidnap kids who are under 18 and throw them into a trunk. And that's, again, not to mention his car, which will blow up, and the fact that he puts onions in eggs. Who the hell puts onions in eggs? He just ruins eggs with that, and that's why he's a horrible babysitter. Baymax, proven medical professional, and you want to talk about every medical professional I know, and I'm sure you've known, realize that you have to eat. You have to eat vegetables. You have to eat fruit. You have to eat protein. You have to drink water. Baymax will provide that when he senses, like he does, that you are low on calories, low on nutrients, low on anything that keeps your health at optimal level. That is the point of Baymax, is that your health is at your most optimum level. And he is always searching, always scanning to make sure that you're at, whether it's physically, whether it's emotional. He is there to protect you in every single way and to make you at your most optimal peak level. Baymax is the perfect healthcare robot because because first of all, most people aren't Hero. They can't create a battle mode that just shuts off. And at the end, when he tries to take out Hero, actually tries to take out the thing to create a battle mode, and Baymax initially refuses him because he realized that it's not the thing that'll make him happy. And he then plays a video of his brother to make him happy and show what he really needs. And if you want to bring up the TV show, which I'm glad you did, because the TV show actually expands even more on his functions and creates a better, more nuanced character that the hour and a half of Big Hero 6 couldn't do. Baymax will always be there for you, will always create that optimum level for you till you're always at your happiest, always at your most profound, and he will do his damnedest trying to do it, while Uncle Buck will be in jail or will have killed your kids by his car, or, again, I cannot stress this enough, would have put onions in your eggs, which no human being should absolutely abide by at all times.
Alrighty. So, onions aside.
They're very important. You don't put onions in eggs.
Very funny argument. I will give you that. But, so this whole round was mostly speculation on how either babysitter would be in a week span with your kids. So, some of the speculations canceled out, like with Baymax argument, oh, he won't be able to do laundry or cook and stuff. That's speculation, because Greg kind of hinted at that it's possible that his functions might be able to make that happen. So it's speculation, we don't know. And then the speculation of Uncle Buck going to jail and beating up kids and putting them in trunk. I mean, it happened in the movie, but that's speculation that it would happen again when it's babysitting your kids. So I'm canceling out those two arguments because those are speculations. Now I'm going on how the characters are individually and what they're like for your kids. And it was really close until the end, and then Greg said the line bad influence and bad influence on your kids. Yeah, role model. He's not a good role model. And when you're thinking of somebody who's not within the family, and we got to assume that Uncle Buck is not your kid's actual uncle, so he's just Buck babysitting your kids, and the fact that he doesn't care for anyone but his family, that I think that's a strong point for me, and I'm going to go with Baymax for this one. For Greg on the point, because I just like I said, I'm judging you as a parent on this one, Alex, and I think that I don't know if it would be a great choice of letting someone who doesn't care about your kids actually babysit them. So we're gonna speculation and go with Baymax, and Baymax had higher highs, and unfortunately, Uncle Buck had lower lows. So 2-1 for Greg, and that's gonna go on to our final question in the regular round, which another fun one. Like I said, this is gonna be another barn burner, and Greg is gonna go first on this one. Pitch a buddy comedy with any movie character, not just superhero character, to tag along with Korg from Thor Ragnarok. So, Greg, you're up first. Who are you going to partner up with Korg from Thor Ragnarok?
Okay, I did go with a superhero character because I am actually excited about doing I'm going to create a buddy comedy movie where Korg and my character Deadpool try and start that revolution that Korg was talking about on his homeworld, where only his mom and her boyfriend showed up to. And as we all know about Korg, he is hilarious. He's very plainly spoken, very stately spoken. He's unassuming, and he's an impressionable character. And the great thing about Deadpool is that he would be a great impression on Korg and just create this awesomely mismatched buddy comedy series that we have the impressionable who kind of it's kind of like Drax, where he doesn't really understand stuff, like when Thor's talking about how his hammer shook up riding the hammer rode on your back. Deadpool, with all of his one-liners, all of his mechanisms, will create that will create that great funny atmosphere, great camaraderie that they have as they travel to Korg's homeworld to try and start the revolution. And as we see in the trailers for the second movie, Deadpool can be caring, and it'll create this great caring atmosphere where they're looking for they're looking for a team, looking for groups, looking for other people to join their team to find this to start the revolution. But it'll only be focused on the Deadpool Korg camaraderie that they will both share. Deadpool being this acerbic, funny one-line spitting, and Korg just reacting to that with his great little New Zealand accent that Taika Waititi brings to it. And that's the other great thing about it is Deadpool has this little is this really word mile a minute. They call him the Merc with the mouth. Korg is really more sedated, more plain spoken. So that great mishmash of characters, great mishmash of voice tones will be a perfect pairing and will create this great story that we can have where they're basically having this great fun time trying to get this revolution started and really just getting waylaid along the process.
All right. Definitely an interesting pairing, going with two comic book characters. And now let's go over to Alex, who may not necessarily go the comic book route with this pairing.
No, I go back to the premise of the question in what would make the best buddy cop movie pairing up Korg with any movie character. And I'm going to go with one of the protagonists of the best buddy cop movie franchise, Lethal Weapon. That would be Martin Riggs, played by Mel Gibson. The difference being with Martin Riggs over Murtaugh, Riggs is the unstable character. Riggs is the character who needs someone to ground him and balance him. That's exactly what Korg would bring. Even though Korg wants to start a revolution and he wants to bring justice to his homeworld, he still is soft-spoken. He is still mild-mannered. He is still even-tempered. And he tries to bring that out in people, and he tries to bring that out in Thor, and he would do that with Martin Riggs. Not to mention, the dude is a giant rock monster. You have a rock monster teaming up with Riggs from Lethal Weapon, Mr. Badass Karate Vietnam vet. They would be unstoppable in the LAPD. They would shut down the South Africans in Lethal Weapon 2. They would shut down the former cop gun smuggling ring in 3. They would shut down the heroin smuggling ring in 1. And the two of them versus Jet Li's character in Lethal Weapon 4, now that's a fight I want to see. These two characters would balance each other well. Riggs' craziness versus Korg's level-headedness would balance each other, completely mesh together, and make an amazing cop duo to protect the streets of LA.
Alrighty, so there's our open arguments. I want to make one clarification and then one point of something I want to hear. The question is best buddy comedy, not cop specifically, so buddy comedy. So, yeah, it says it in the text. Just you can double check it. It's comedy. So just want to clear that out. You didn't drive into a hole, so no worries.
All right.
But best buddy comedy. And then the second thing is I want to hear what your plot is of your movie or your potential franchise. So, Alex, you were kind of touching on the Lethal Weapon thing. So, are you going down that path, or are you starting something new? And then, Greg, you're definitely obviously have something new. So, I want to hear that. So, do either of you want to do your extension, or are we going with 5 minutes?
Go 5.
Greg?
I'm good.
All right. So you guys got what I want to hear, and 5 minutes is going to start now.
First of all, as soon as Riggs sees Korg, he's probably going to shoot him because he's not sure what the hell he's looking at. You're talking about a guy with PTSD from Vietnam. You're bringing in a rock monster that into the Lethal Weapon franchise, which there are no mythological creatures in the Lethal Weapon franchise. There's no mythological anything. So you want Riggs, who is a known psychopath, who is doing obvious amounts of medicine and drugs, and he's probably going to think that he's hallucinating and probably trying to shoot Korg, and that's not going to create anything anyway. And Riggs is.
This is taking place. My version of this is taking place in a world where both alien creatures and mythical creatures coexist with humans, similar to the movie Bright. So it's a better version of Bright, essentially. Well, it's a better version of Bright because it's taking the premise of Lethal Weapon and mixing in Korg and alien creatures. So the first one, you would have them fighting off against former soldier heroin smugglers, some of whom are cybernetic. The second film, werewolves smuggling gold Krugerrands from South Africa. You can go on and on and on with that kind of premise. The difference would be the chemistry between the two characters. The difference is that Riggs is crazy, Korg is level-headed. You get that nice mesh, very similar to what you have in the existing Lethal Weapon franchise, but with the comedic timing,
who is actually a better character.
But with the comedic timing of Korg, played by Taika Waititi, who's a better writer and a better scriptmaker and a better filmmaker to make the film smooth out. The difference with Deadpool is he's too over the top. He's too crazy. He's just as likely to cut Korg's head off and run away with the spoils of war than help him start a revolution. The two of them
When is it
aren't going to
ever been
mesh
proven
well.
that Deadpool will cut off a sidekick's head? He has never betrayed any of his sidekicks, just like in the first movie where he protects Weasel
He
and
betrays his
Leviathan.
sidekicks in the comics all the time. That's the
We're not
whole
talking about the comics. We're talking about the movies.
Deadpool.
We're talking about the movies. The Deadpool movie is different from the comic book movie.
We've only had one Deadpool movie to judge him off of officially, or we could judge him off the other films where he was portrayed completely crap. The difference is with Deadpool, he's psychotic. The difference is with Deadpool, he's a solo act. He performs best on his own. The whole point is in Deadpool, he only goes to X-Force, the X-Men for help because he needs them. He's only going to go to X-Force for help because he needs them. He doesn't want a buddy. He wants to do things his own way for the sake of his own life. A buddy would only get in his way. So he's going to avoid that at all costs. He's only going to use
a buddy would not get in his way. A buddy is the perfect pairing of Deadpool's sensibilities and Deadpool's comedic timing, comedic in assery, comedic buffoonery. And if you're going on this intergalactic world bending buddy comedy to get to Korg's homeworld to start this revolution, it'll create all of these different awesome scenes and worlds and places that they're going to be stopping at to get different people to find different stuff, and it'll just be and unlike Riggs, who will be completely bamboozled by Korg, Deadpool will love Korg. Can you think of all the puns and witty one-liners he could make just off Korg being wrong?
No, because all it would be is Deadpool insulting Korg and not wanting to have anything to do with him, walking away from him, and then that'd be the end of the movie.
Oh, really? What about when Korg blows up somebody and Deadpool goes, "Hey, Korg, you're hard as a rock." You know, this is just all the one-liners he can have because this is stuff he's going to be creating at.
But they're not going to happen because, true to the character, Deadpool would tell Korg to go fuck himself, walk away, and that'd be the end of the movie. He wants nothing to do with Korg's revolution.
What are you basing this off of? You have no basis for this. Deadpool.
I have basis for this in that Deadpool wants nothing to do with the side characters in his film until he needs.
Oh, you mean like
help.
when he asked Colossus and Negatron Teenage Warhead for help at the end of the first movie? You mean like that? When he tells his
when he needs them, he needs nothing from Korg. You haven't established any need for him to have Korg around. The difference is with Riggs, he needs a center, he needs a partner. And in the films I'm creating, in the story I'm creating, Riggs and Korg would work together to try and solve crimes. Part of which would be what happened with Korg's homeworld and the rest of his species and getting him back there if he ends up wanting to go back there. The difference is with mine, you're getting two characters who balance each other. Somebody who needs someone who's stable and caring for their partner versus someone who maybe needs someone on their side with a little bit of a hard edge, with a little bit of a can-do attitude, someone who's going to give them the kick in the ass to go kick ass that they need, which is what Korg needed from Thor.
You're putting a interesting character like Korg into a bland cop movie, and you're creating this thing where Korg is too impressionable. You're talking about Korg being just like Murtaugh. Korg is not like Murtaugh. Korg will not be able to rein in Riggs's antics and buffoonery, because if you just look at the end of Ragnarok when he unzaps Loki and Loki says, "Looks like y'all need a leader," Korg just goes along with it, and we all know Loki's a horrible leader. This is what Korg will just anything Riggs accepts. They will be a horrible cop duo. They'll be like
and time. Woo! All right, that was fun. I knew that would be. We definitely have some interesting takes, and we're gonna go into our closing arguments, starting with Greg. And let me just reiterate one last time. I want to hear what your movie is going to be about. So we definitely start about that. So just don't forget the actual movie. And story-wise, because it's buddy comedy, so that's an actual movie, okay? Not just the pairing. So, closing arguments, starting with Greg, go.
Korg and Riggs would be a horrible pairing, a la Samuel Jackson and The Rock's character and the other guys, because it's just one guy following another one, and they'll probably kill themselves or kill a lot of people because Korg is not someone who can rein in Riggs. Korg needs someone and they need to be somewhere where there's not going to be any kind of restraints on them like Cop. They need to be on this intergalactic buddy comedy space traveling where they're going to different planets, interacting with different people, different cultures, different aliens, and they're trying to get this revolution going while Deadpool is really doing his damnedest to just waylay the entire situation by either keeps getting into puny fights with people, keeps having sex with different ladies or different guys, depending on if you want to go into comic draft or not. And you have this great different pairing where Korg and Deadpool can create this awesome mishmash intergalactic buddy space comedy that they're going to try and start the revolution while having this great team up that ends up meeting at his space travel. And this could continue if you wanted to being done in one movie where you ended at the this revolution, or you set it up for a whole trilogy where you get all of these people going, you get all of these people facing out. You find people like Meek. You go to Meek's home world, and you create more people that you can invest in and get more battles and stuff going on. This will not be what will be going on in your world, where you have Riggs who cannot be reined in by Korg, because Korg is not a reining guy in. He does not rein in the antics of the character, which is why you need characters who are just bombastic, and you need to be in a world or in a story where there's nothing reining them in. You have two characters who have to report to people, who have to have guidelines. And you want Riggs having no guidelines and no one like Murtaugh who can rein him in. Korg, as we've shown, is not someone who can rein in. He is a very much impressionable character who has a great comedic one-liners, but as we've shown with Loki, he does not rein characters in. He just goes with whatever's said and creates his fun antics that he does. And he'll point stuff out. Deadpool, with the different kind of witty one-liners, the different kind of comments, the give and take that they can have with each other, will create this awesome story that will continue on throughout the intergalactic space travel that we know we want, and will not have any kind of rules reining them in, unlike your movie, because it will rein them in hard and will create a very short movie due to the fact that you cannot have two cops acting like those two people will do.
Oh, all right. Nice fierce words and a nice strong closing. All right, Alex, finish it up. The regular gameplay of this tournament finale.
There's a couple of things you've made a point about in terms of Korg reining in Riggs. Murtaugh doesn't even really rein in Riggs in those movies. He ends up going along with the insanity that Riggs causes, and they both end up having to pay the consequences. The difference here is that with Korg, there's not going to be many consequences, because anytime they get into an altercation, Korg is a giant fucking stone monster. He's going to end up stopping any problems that get started when he needs to. The difference is with this story, you're getting two characters, one of whom is unstable and completely unhinged, versus Korg, who may be impressionable, but he is stable. He is kind-hearted. He is simple-minded. He's going to bring Riggs the kind of care of as a partner in a cop situation that you need. They're going to be a great good cop, bad cop duo, fighting off intergalactic werewolves smuggling gold Krugerrands, fighting off cybernetic war vets smuggling heroin, going along with the premise of the Lethal Weapon films, but just making fantastical creatures instead of the existing basic villains. The difference with Deadpool and Korg is Deadpool does not give a shit about anybody. He doesn't need Korg for any reason. He's going to ditch Korg the first chance he gets, and we're just going to get a Deadpool in space movie. That, to me, would be more interesting than Deadpool and Korg together, because Korg does nothing to bounce off of Deadpool and give him any real comedic use. Korg, the one-liners aside, doesn't have any fuel for Deadpool. He just wants to start the revolution. He just wants to go on and go save his homeworld. Deadpool's not going to be interested in that. There's nothing Korg can bring to the table to make Deadpool interested in that. And ultimately, Deadpool's going to walk away from him and betray him the first chance he gets to get back to his homeworld, back to his life of being a sleazeball, gun for hire, and going home to bang his hot girlfriend, which is what he really only wants. With Martin Riggs, you're getting an intriguing character who's going to want interesting Korg when he sees what Korg can do in protecting people and protecting Riggs himself, backing him up as a giant beast, but also appealing to his softer side, making him feel subdued, making him feel welcome, making him feel like he has someone to talk to. And that's really all Riggs ever needed in those films, is someone to listen to him after all the shit that he's gone through. Korg is a great example of that. And in a fantastic world where aliens, robots, mythological creatures, and humans all exist together, Korg and Riggs would be a great duo together as cops, protecting the people around them and learning to grow with each other.
Woo! All righty. This one was very fun. I'm going to go right off the bat and say that you two canceled each other out with neither of you really explaining why either character really would pair up together. So any of those arguments regarding that cancel each other out, because neither of you really gave me a good reason why they would pair up, whether it's like, oh, Korg just trying to join the X-Men, or trying to join the actual cop force. Like that point never was actually brought up, so that's canceled out. So what I'm going off of is the concept of the story and the relationship between the two. And right off the bat, Alex had a better story, and both of you had really good relationships. But I kind of really liked and understood the point where Alex said that Deadpool really just cares about himself and is really selfish, and the girlfriend part, especially at the end, he hammered it home. If he just wants to get back home to his girlfriend, and if you're going to turn this into a in space movie with Deadpool, then he's not really going to have any fun. And because Greg never brought up the girlfriend of like bringing her along, you can just tell that he's going to be sidetracked, and he's definitely not going to be in the right mindset, and he's definitely not going to have Korg's back, which ultimately is not going to have a good pairing, and it's going to affect their story, because if he's going to join his revolution, he needs to be all in, and if he's not all in, then it's definitely going to affect that. So honestly, I think Greg had a better set of skits, but as far as an overall movie, I'm going with Alex on that point, and it's going to tie it up 2-2 going into the speed round. First off, I want to say congratulations making it this far. This could have easily been a 4-0 knockout, a 3-1, a 2-2. All these arguments were great, and I'm just excited for this. So do you guys need a break, a glass of water, anything, or are you guys ready for the speed round?
Let's go.
Let's just do it.
All right, gentlemen. This first one is a wide open question, okay? So as soon as I end the sentence or whenever you want to jump in, just throw out an answer, okay? What movie character, so this is any movie character, would be our movie battleground champion?
Alec Baldwin's character from Glengarry Glen Ross.
Okay.
Tyler Durden from Fight Club.
Okay. We definitely got Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross first, so we're going to start with Greg. 30 seconds when you begin speaking.
The whole point of movie ground is to be the best possible arguer, the best possible talker. Alec Baldwin's character in Glengarry Glen Ross, Blake, comes in for 5 minutes and owns the movie because he is the best talker in the movie. He mentions that with all of his prizes, with his car, with his brass balls. He is the best possible movie arguer there is. Tyler Durden is a figment of imagination. Tyler Durden will not be a good arguer. It'll go to Edward Norton's character, who's the real character, and it will create Edward Norton is not the best arguer. Tyler Durden is, and he's a fictional character. Tyler Durden is someone who is also
Alrighty. Over to Alex with Tyler Durden. When you begin speaking, 30 seconds.
The difference is that when the Tyler Durden persona is active within the narrator, he is magnanimous, he is magnetic, he is charismatic, he makes people listen, he makes people follow, he gets people to do exactly what he wants, and that's exactly what you would want in a battleground match, people to listen to you and follow you. With Alec Baldwin's character, 90% of the shit that comes out of his mouth makes you want to punch him in the face or kick him out of the room. You don't care about that type of person because ultimately they're just lauding their own accomplishments over you and completely destructing you for no reason other than to get you demoralized. That's the type of person you shouldn't listen to, and most people wouldn't bother to listen to because they don't really have anything to offer.
15 seconds whenever you're ready, Greg, for your final.
The problem is you don't know which one you're going to get, either Edward Norton's character or Tyler Durden. And that's the problem. You want him to be on for the entire fight. He is not on for the entire fight. He goes wishy-washy both ways, and then what he does, he's anarchy. Blake is the best for 5 minutes, and he's proven that with his sales records and the fact that he can motivate people. He will prove it, and he sells people with the fact that he's the best.
All right. Last one with Alex when you begin speaking. 15 seconds.
You're getting Tyler Durden 100% of the time, and when you get Tyler Durden, you're getting the most persuasive and the most charismatic person in the room. Blake does not motivate the crew of Glengarry Glen Ross. He does not motivate them that well. They end up just going the same course they did in the rest of the story and getting the same results. He's not effective. Tyler Durden gets results and gets people to do his bidding.
All right, so I'm not sure if Greg did his homework and he saw my match against Drake with my Tyler Durden argument, but he definitely went there right off the bat, so I got to give him credit for that. I really liked Alex's knock on Alec Baldwin's character, where he's not likable, he's just angry and he's just selfish and he's just going to hate him. But I wanted to hear just one extended thing from Alex about the Tyler Durden thing. He said he's going to be Tyler Durden the whole time, but he just said that as a throwaway line, and you kind of didn't explain it. You could have said in the movie that he goes in long extents of time where he's Tyler Durden, and you could have just said anything like that, but you didn't really back it up. So because of that, I really, really liked how Greg said that it's wishy-washy, and especially if you're going to be champion, you're going to have multiple games. So I'm going to go with Greg on that point for Alec Baldwin's character. So 3-2 for Greg. That was tough, though. That was fucking tough. All right. This one's an either or, okay? So wait for me to say both of them.
Either or.
Because we can't get over the coattails of Avengers Infinity War, we got to talk about it again. So you show up to the movie theater to buy a ticket for Avengers Infinity War, but it's sold out. And only these two movies are being re-released and are the only two options. Which one would you rather see? Daredevil or Ang Lee's Hulk?
Ang Lee's Hulk.
Okay, I got Hulk from Alex and Daredevil from Greg. And Hulk from Alex first. So
question, you did say Ang Lee's Hulk, right?
Ang Lee's Hulk.
Okay,
so when you begin speaking, Alex, with Ang Lee's Hulk.
With Ang Lee's Hulk, you're at least getting something visually interesting in the fact that he frames the film like a comic book and has comic book transitions, not to mention an underrated and understated performance by Eric Bana as Dr. Bruce Banner and the Hulk. With Daredevil, you're getting something that's completely campy, played for laughs. It's the theatrical cut of the film, not the director's cut, so there's no darkness to the film. Everything is either just too over the top and campy, or just playing it way too subtle and not hitting the point of what Daredevil is as a character. It's too engulfed in the romance of him and Elektra, and not enough in the character of Matt Murdock, the tortured soul. With Ang Lee's Hulk, you're getting the tortured Bruce Banner.
All right, Greg, when you begin speaking, 30 seconds.
The problem with going to see Ang Lee's Hulk, it's a completely different Hulk. It's not Mark Ruffalo. It's not Edward Norton. It's Eric Bana, which is not even in the actual continuum of the Marvel Universe. So you're not even getting credence with the fact, which is when you see Infinity War, you'll see William Hurt's character, and it's not Sam Elliott's character. You'll be confused when you actually see it. You're like, what the hell's going on? Daredevil is not in this Marvel Universe. It was never planned to be the Marvel Universe. It's by Fox, and it's a better movie. It's not as boring, where Ang Lee's Hulk is just boring and he fights a poodle. And Daredevil at least fights Kingpin. He never fights a poodle in the Hulk movie. Daredevil is better.
Time. 15 seconds from Alex when you begin speaking.
Different characters cast in the films happens all the time in the Marvel films. Edward Norton versus Mark Ruffalo as Hulk already happened, plus William Hurt versus Sam Elliott as General Ross. Actually, Sam Elliott's better. The difference is with Hulk, at least they're trying something interesting, and they do have a good performance of Bruce Banner, whereas with Daredevil, it's too over the top. It's too campy. It's not true to the character of Daredevil.
All right. And Greg, when you're ready.
It doesn't matter if they recast it because the storylines in Ang Lee's Hulk will not actually travel over to Infinity War. And Ang Lee is boring. It's not as fun. You want to go to Infinity War because it's fun. Daredevil is actually funner. It's not boring. It's not sad. It's not melodramatic. And Daredevil is campy, but it's still fun. It's not as boring. It's not as sullen. It's not as dark. And Ang Lee's Hulk.
Woo! All right. So we both know that both these movies aren't great. So that's right off the bat. That's just a given. Greg kept talking about how the characters don't match up. Alex talked about how it's the theatrical cut and it's not the extended or the director's, however you want to word it. So it's not going to be as interesting as Dark. And this is going into the movie not knowing what Infinity War is. So tone-wise, I don't think it matters.
Trailers.
Character-wise, when Greg said that it's not Mark Ruffalo and it's not Edward Norton, that's going to affect you, that really got me. But then Alex said that changes happen all the time in the Marvel Universe, so ultimately you're still getting the same Hulk, and that character is related in Infinity War, and Daredevil's not. And Greg said that he's not part of the Marvel Universe, which Greg explicitly said Daredevil's not. So that doesn't really relate, and that's not going to be as, compelling. So I'm going to go with Alex on this one to tie it up and go to the final question. All right, guys, final question.
Unbelievable.
This one is another wide open question, and because it's the final question, you're going to get 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and 10. So you're going to get 3 rounds here. So keep that in mind when you make your pick, and potentially whatever. All right. Who doesn't love talking about Christmas in May? What movie character would you trust to Christmas shop for your entire family?
Preston from Blank Check.
Okay.
Buddy the Elf from Elf.
Ooh. All right. We got Greg with Preston from Blank Check first. So don't forget, it's 30, 20, 10. So keep that in mind with your arguments and how you structure it. So, Greg, when you begin speaking, you got 30 seconds.
Preston from Blank Check is every character's wish fulfillment, and because he gets all the stuff that he wants, and he buys all the stuff that he wants, he can buy that for you and your family, which is what he does. He buys a new house, he buys a new stuff, and he tells his family that's what he gets. I forgot what his choice was. Preston is just going to create this great little fun atmosphere. He's going to he's going to buy all your friends. He's going to do all this great stuff that you can have, and he's going to do it. And Buddy from Elf is not which does not have money. He doesn't understand what money is. He's just a toy maker, and while they don't create he doesn't create the best. So he's not even a good toy maker.
All right, Alex, you're first. 30 seconds when you're ready.
Buddy the Elf has years of experience working in Santa's workshop and working with Santa's modus operandi of getting people what their heart most desires and the perfect gift. He shows that throughout the film and getting people the perfect Christmas gifts because he loves Christmas so much. Preston is a kid with a blank check, yes, but the blank check is not completely unlimited. He's going to run out of money just on spending on 2 or 3 things, and ultimately he's buying stuff that interests himself. He doesn't have other people's interests in mind when he's spending the money. He only has his own interest in mind. He's a selfish kid who only thinks of selfish things for himself and spending the money. With Buddy the Elf, he knows the spirit of Christmas.
All right, 20 seconds. Back over to Greg.
The question asks, who will be the best person to buy Christmas gifts during Christmas season? Buddy will keep being distracted by all the Santa Clauses at the malls, thinking he's at the right one, and he'll be working during Christmas season because that's his job. Preston from Blank Check will be using his money and buying this stuff, and he actually does start buying stuff for his family and people he cares about, like near the end of the movie when he starts getting all that stuff, and when he gets check.
20 seconds for Alex when he's ready.
Preston's only buying stuff at the end of the movie for the unselfish reason of realizing that making other people happy makes him happy. Buddy's whole modus operandi is making other people happy because that's how he was raised as an elf. And as part of his job as an elf, he's going to buy the best Christmas presents for everyone because he knows exactly what they want. And he will find out what they want, give them what their heart desires, and give them what makes them truly happy at Christmas because that is what his life fulfillment is and what he is made to do.
All right, final 10 seconds. Take as much time as you need to gather your final thoughts, Greg. But whenever you start speaking, it's your final 10 seconds.
He only needs a blank check for a week because it's Christmas season. He only needs it for a week. Buddy will be is doing all the stuff because he overhears stuff. He doesn't actually do it because he cares. He oversees like when he goes in the shower. But Preston will be better. Buddy is to be distracted. He will be working to do it.
Once again, Alex, same thing. Gather your thoughts as long as you need, but you only have 10 seconds. So when you begin speaking, final 10 seconds in this tournament finale.
With the way Preston spends money, his check would run out after buying only 2 or 3 gifts for people. With Buddy the Elf, he is going to do his hardest to make the best possible Christmas for people. Even though he may get distracted, the end goal is making a great Christmas, and that's exactly what he's going to do.
Wow. This one is tough, and you guys definitely hesitated on your answers, but I definitely couldn't have gotten a better argument and a better final debate in this finale. So, we got Preston from Blank Check and Buddy from Elf. Alex kept talking about how he's going to have the most care and the most love for your family when buying them presents. Greg said that Preston is going to have the most money and he's just going to be able to splurge and spend on whatever you want. Alex said that Preston is going to be selfish until the very end and ultimately spend all the money on himself, which ultimately might make him run out of money before he finally gets that final thought and gets the money on the family. Greg said that Buddy's going to get distracted and Buddy is going to be more focused on the holiday itself than actually getting the presents. The question was, what movie character would you trust to Christmas shop for your family? So regardless of the outcome, the question is, who would you trust to Christmas shop? Greg brought up the fact that Buddy doesn't have any money. And Alex brought up that he's going to do whatever it takes to get the presents gotten. I didn't say that right, but to get the presents for the family. So moving on to play in a triple threat championship match. Greg Weinstein, because unlimited money is going to go over for when you're going to trust somebody, regardless of their outcome. That kills me to say. I just needed one line from Alex to say how Buddy was actually going to get these presents, because Greg said he couldn't make them.
It's Alex, unlimited money.
Alex never brought. I know, but you just never brought up.
Limited.
All I needed was one line of where Buddy's going to get any source of income. You could have even brought up that if you're trusting Buddy, you're going to give him the money yourself and just give that responsibility, but that never came up. And if you just would have said anything along those lines, you would have destroyed him, given your knock on Preston. But because I didn't hear anything from that, unfortunately, I'm going to go with Greg. And congratulations, Greg. You're moving on to the triple threat, which, spoiler alert, if that hasn't been announced yet, or that's going to be edited out, I'm not sure. But triple threat to face Isaac Horvat and Evan DeGraff in a championship match. This went down to the wire. This was a lot of fun. This was exhausting. I'm heartbroken. I'm ready for Christmas. I'm ready for buddy cop movies, and I'm ready for unnecessary sequels. So as we all see, I did the hosting for this match, but I am not the face of the movie Battleground, and that is one, Aaron Knoll. So I'm going to toss it over to him so we can talk to our competitors in whatever way he would like.
Hey guys, Aaron Knoll here from Movie Battleground once again. First off, big shout out to Henry for hosting and judging the match. Thank you for that. Sure, it was a lot of pressure to step in and do something like this again. It's a position I've been in before, so I know exactly what that's like. First off, no matter the result, I want to say congratulations to both Alex and Greg. You guys have been extremely impressive this entire time, going on an absolute tear through this tournament. And officially, I want to congratulate Greg Weinstein, who is the winner of the 2018 Movie Battleground Tournament, who will be moving on to face the current champion, Evan DeGraff, and the second person in that match, Isaac Horvat, who advances through winning the triple threat match, or the second part of the five-way. Excuse me. So we'll go to him first real fast. Greg, first off, congratulations once again. How are you feeling, man? And looking forward to that match, I'm assuming?
I'm feeling great. Just want to say great job to Alex. It was a hell of a match. He obviously proved why he was here to begin with. Yeah, it was a great match. Had a lot of fun. I think I should have won argument one, and then I would have won in the speed round of the first one, but whatever. Yeah, I'm obviously looking forward to it. I've already beaten Isaac, and I have no issues or qualms. I think I won't beat Ivan. So as far as I'm concerning, I just had my tournament final, and this is going to be a cakewalk going into my championship crowning.
Okay, and with that, once again, congratulations, man, and good luck in that match. Alex, we'll throw it over to you, man. Unfortunate on the defeat. Obviously, you've worked very hard. Like you said, a 5-game win streak is nothing to scoff at. Certainly an impressive feat here. Obviously, not positive, but how are you feeling after that match? And obviously, looking forward in the future, you are one of the highest ranked competitors. So it won't be long until you get a look in at a possible title shot again down the road. Just overall, how you feeling, man?
I gave it 100% in this match. And just clearly, I'm very sorry. I know this is a subjective sport, but at the same time, the fact that my opponent was allowed to argue a made-for-home video movie instead of a theatrical release for one argument, and I let that slip myself. But you mentioned post-game that was caught and it shouldn't have been. I'm sorry. I don't like that sliding. I don't like the fact that it feels like half the time my arguments are being passed over. I'm just done with it. So I'm sorry. My 5-game win streak may have ended, but I'm going to be taking a back seat for a while. You're not going to see me back in this ring for a little bit. I've got too much else going on. I'm sorry. I need to take a step back after this. This was going to be either me getting the belt or me taking a walk away for a little while, and this match just sealed it for me. I need some time away to focus on some other stuff here in Worldwide Movie Games. I might come back soon, near the end of the year or something along those lines, but this was my swan song for a little while. Greg, congratulations. You got the W no matter what it took. Have fun in the championship match. I'll be watching. But as far as seeing me again down the road, that's going to be a wait and see.
Okay, and on that note, I'll go ahead and throw it back to Henry to close out the match. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty, so as we saw, that's how it goes in a tournament finale. You can't please everybody, but hopefully we pleased all of you guys watching, and hopefully there's not too many angry comments below. Hopefully you guys were entertained throughout. You guys got a 7-question tournament finale, and hopefully you guys were entertained for 2+ hours, hour plus, however long this is. So as always, I'm Henry Confidential. You can check out Movie Battleground here on the Worldwide Movie Games Network. Check out the rest of the tournament matches preceding this, and check out our other leagues on here. We have Full Metal Trivia, which is an open-ended whiteboard trivia match, which has 5 competitors usually at a time. And then you also have There Will Be Trivia, which is we're finishing up our singles and teams tournament right now, and then we're going to be getting into regular season play pretty soon. And we're definitely working on getting some names out there and getting some popularity in the channel and within the league. So go ahead and check us out and catch us now while you can, and maybe get in there. And as I said, this is the end of this tournament right here. So go ahead and comment below and join the Movie Battleground group and the Worldwide Movie Games group on Facebook, and try and get yourself a match, because pretty soon it's going to be open and matches are going to be ready for sign up. So like I said, I'm Henry Confidential. That was Aaron Knoll, the main face of Movie Battleground. Our competitors today, Greg Weinstein, congratulations to him, and unfortunately the loss for Alex Warden. I'm Henry Confidential. This is Movie Battleground. Good night.